Hey folks, Mythic ODM here. So on Monday, September 9th, the world lost an absolute legend, James Earl Jones. Now, most folks will know him as the voice of Mufasa on The Lion King. And of course, you know, the nerds watching this channel know him for his voice acting as, you know, the Dark Lord of the Sith, Darth Vader in the Star Wars series. Now, for me, the first time I actually ever got to see James Earl Jones was on the big screen in Conan the Barbarian. He played Thulsa Doom. He was the big bad guy, the set-worshipping villain of the movie. And I was just starting to play Dungeons and Dragons around that time. So whenever I could watch a fantasy movie, I did, such as, you know, Conan, Willow, Krull, Dark Crystal, you know, anything in the 80s I could watch, I definitely did. It was a huge influence on me. James Earl Jones' portrayal of Thulsa Doom was just remarkable because of the fact that his acting, first of all, is top notch, but that voice, his absolute insanely dynamic voice just gave the character such weight that you could feel the evil of the character just exuding from him. And it really, really just made the movie that much better. I don't think another actor at that time could have portrayed him as well, especially with that so recognizable, so iconic voice. So I was way too young to see Star Wars or Empire Strikes Back on the big screen. Star Wars came out when I was about 4.5 years old. Empire came out when I was like 7.5 years old. So seeing him on the big screen wasn't something that was going to happen. Now, I did watch him on VHS obsessively. I still remember when Return of the Jedi was releasing in theaters, our cinema in town, the Cinema Twin, put out the week before a double header of Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back. Now, again, I was almost 11 at this point, but you know, and we were in a very small town. I think my hometown only had like 15,000 people in it. Everyone knew everyone, but still, my mom, being a mom, said absolutely no. There's no way a 10-year-old is going to go see a double header at the Cinema Twin, so far away from my house, which happened to be, I think, a good 10-minute walk from my house. But in those days, that was a long, long way. We didn't have social media, cell phones, et cetera, et cetera. The only way I could go was to convince my big brother to do so. So cue the crying, the wailing, the begging, the pleading. Honestly, it really didn't take much. My big brother absolutely loved Star Wars as well, and it was a great thing to go see. So I actually got to see both of them in their original format on film. Like, I'm talking film, not digital, nothing like that, a week before Return of the Jedi came out. And one thing that made Star Wars as great as it was is Darth Vader. You can't have a good story and a good conflict without having an extremely well-written and well-acted villain. Movies fall flat because villains have no substance to them. His screen presence, you know, the big dark, the helmet, the samurai inspired getup from George Lucas, the writing, the directing, you know, Dave Prowse's physical acting of it, and then of course layering James Earl Jones's voice on top of it just made him, to me, the best villain that, you know, Hollywood's ever produced. And you know, I still say that to this day. Darth Vader is just an iconic bad guy. You know, I loved watching Luke and Han and Leia and Chewie and R2 and 3PO, Obi-Wan and all them folks, but without having really good bad guys and Darth Vader being the best bad guy, it made the movie worth watching. So, yeah, I was way too young to understand what voice acting was. I had no idea about how filming worked and how video worked and stuff, but the character of Vader stuck with me. And to say I was obsessed and still am obsessed with Star Wars is kind of an understatement. You know, I spent one summer when I think I was about 15 years old. Every single day I would watch the trilogy. It came to the point where I ended up burning our VHS tapes out because I'd watched them so much. I borrowed my buddy's VCR, connected them together, and ended up recording the movies onto a new VHS, and then watched them all again throughout the summer, and ended up burning out that videotape as well.
Damn! It's ours now.
And when I say I watched it, and I'm not joking, 50 times or more in a summer, that's not even an understatement. I seriously I got up in the morning around 8 a.m., had a bowl of cereal, Gave my mom a big hug and kiss, and then disappeared down into our family room for the morning to watch Star Wars. And then I would go and play with my friends in the afternoon. We ended up at one point building a half cockpit of the Millennium Falcon in my games room out of wood and plywood and lumber. We put light brights up in the cockpit and had like fluorescent lights shining through them and stuff. We had a Commodore 64 running the nav computer, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, my parents were so generous to us. My dad basically just, as long as we didn't burn down the house with our shenanigans, he didn't care. And it was wonderful. And, you know, to this day, I still can pretty much recite the first three movies, including R2's beeps and whistles. My better half always giggles at me because I do that. You know, I have a Sphero droid that you can watch the movie with, and he will make noise and sounds that sync up with the movie. It's hilarious. But, you know, my cats are named R2 and 3PO. So when I say I love my Star Wars, I do. And I don't think I would have been as obsessed with it if it didn't have such a good villain, and that course being James Earl Jones and David Prowse. These movies really shaped and spurred on my love of science fiction and fantasy. You know, I gobbled up all the extended universe books that they wrote, and it really ended up helping shape my love for Dungeons and Dragons, for games like the Marvel superhero game, Travelers, and others. And it really helped me to expand my imagination and come up with stories that my friends and I enjoyed for years. And, you know, we still enjoy to this day. I wouldn't be making videos about RPGs if I didn't like it. And Star Wars was an absolutely huge influence on me for that kind of creativity. Now, James Earl Jones, unbeknownst to me at the time again, really helped me fall in love with the world of fantasy and fiction. And I truly am appreciative of all of his work, you know, his achievements and his accomplishments. He's one of the rare EGOT folks, which means he has won Emmys, he's won Grammys, Oscars, and Tony Awards. It's very rare for people to get that. There's only a handful that have all of those underneath their belt, but James Earl Jones did. The one thing I'm very thankful about is that he allowed his iconic Sith Lord to remain an ongoing presence in the Star Wars community because he signed over his rights to his archival work to a Ukrainian startup named Respeecher. And those folks have used AI to basically go over all the different sound bites that Jones had recorded over the years to basically clone his voice. I know he also did do some new lines for them as well, just to give them some extra words. And they have been able to use AI to basically put his voice back together as Lord Vader. And I believe they ended up doing that for Rogue One because his voice was giving out at that point. So they ended up using that, I believe, in Rogue One. I'm very sure it was Rogue One. But it's amazing that, you know, he had the presence of thought and the willingness and the love of Star Wars to let them do that. And he knew how important his voice was to the genre, to the series. Now, I'd love to hear your guys' favorite memories of James Earl Jones in the comments below. Which role did you like him in? He's been in so many movies and all this stuff, but, you know, again, Mufasa, Vader, Field of Dreams, so many other iconic movies. What role did you like him in the best? I'd love to know that. And do you think that Vader is the best villain in cinematic history? I absolutely do, and I would love to hear your comments. But, you know, in the meantime and in between time, may the Force be with you all. Bye for now.